Hi everyone, please support our videos on Patreon. The link's at the end of the video and in the down there part. Thank you, you're lovely. Hey, so I've been in... Ow. That hurt. But I'm okay. Anyway, I've been through some wicked creator's block lately, so I don't really know where this video is going, and I don't really have a thesis. This is all just stuff I need to get off my chest. That okay? No? Alright, I'll be sure to think about how much I've let you down the next time I'm doing something important, like making breakfast for my unbelievably hot wife. I think it's safe to say that Avatar poisoned the discourse. Between the incessant pleading and praying for another show to mimic it, even after 200 shows have done that already, and people still, after 20 years, making lol, this is a kid's show jokes anytime it does something that wouldn't be out of place in a Disney film because being a pearl-clutching old Karen and being a pathetic loser trying to gatekeep cartoons are functionally identical. Oh my god, a bra strap! Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Avatar is guilty of war crimes by infecting the discourse with some of the most unoriginal people. You know how people say Harry Potter fans need to read another book? Avatar fans need to watch another show, and not one that just apes what it does, because if I see one more fucking charity cakes compare the next Kingdom Hearts clone to Avatar, I'm gonna fucking... Look. Comparing every single bit of animated YA fantasy to Avatar is itself inherently problematic because Avatar itself wasn't a trendsetter. It was popular, but it was popular for being the version of its own genre that had a dramatic ending. It was the epitome of I'm 14 and this is deep. Not because it's edgy, but because at the time, the big stick-out moment wasn't any of the heartfelt dialogue, but the battle scenes where dramatic music is playing. That's not an insult to the people who liked Avatar, it's just our tastes weren't as deep as we like to imagine. It was often rewatches as an adult that made much of the more sentimental dialogue hit home. And some really came away realizing that it was what made Avatar work, while others still held on to that initial impression of dramatic music and intense fighting. The truth of the matter is that for years, millennials wanted to find the next Avatar and kept looking in the wrong places for it. They looked for another adventure across a fantasy world where they should have been looking for well-rounded characters. They looked for villain redemptions where they should have been looking for good protagonists. I've said for a long time that patient zero for people really not getting why Avatar was good was Zuko. Zuko is the point of comparison for every single villain redemption written since Avatar aired, and people often bemoan that no villain has ever been as good as Zuko. But the reason Zuko is so fundamentally different from every other antagonist is because he's a protagonist. Right from episode 1, he has his own screen time in equal balance with the gang, his own supporting characters, and antagonists in his own story that challenge him in ways he must overcome. Fun fact, in the aftermath of The Rise of Skywalker, Zuko was a point of comparison to critique Kylo Ren's story arc, but Zuko, as a character, has always been more comparable to Finn. In recent years, people, including me, have expressed annoyance that Zuko is always the point of comparison for villain redemptions, or rather, the trend of villain as the real protagonist. But this really does reveal why that is the case, because many people want a villain redemption that mirrors Zuko, or at least they think they want it, but Zuko's arc doesn't work on a villain because it is a fundamentally protagonist story. Zuko has always had more in common with heroic characters than villainous characters because he is a heroic character. One of the main hooks that make him interesting is that he's really bad at resisting the urge to be a good person, and he's really bad at being a bad person. It's like saying you want another villain redemption like Riku. At the end of the day, Riku was only an antagonist for a very short period of time, and he was a pawn ultimately, and he was also really bad at it until Ansem possessed him. So yeah, Avatar's biggest fans have always fundamentally misunderstood Avatar, including misunderstanding its importance in the discourse. Avatar was a happy accident, a show that used an already established formula for a cartoon that had been around for quite some time, and managing to make the little things work within it to make something genuinely good and memorable. But it did that through good characters that have contrasting personalities and a great deal of chemistry in any pair, and was never afraid to have anyone in the main cast be the dickhead of the week. This is why attempts to mimic it are often failures, because where Avatar had dynamic characters you could do a lot with and have clear goals, strengths, failings, and little irrational weirdnesses that make them human, its imitators have static characters built entirely from stock tropes and either exist to fulfill the desire for the edgy one or the funny one, or exist to form the other half of a pre-existing dynamic. This was the problem Avatar's own sequel had, in that its main characters amounted to little more than the hot topic versions of the old ones, but with none of the little eccentricities that make them interesting, and only existed to be pretty and brood, and no effort was put into making them more interesting, as they spent all their time on really bad villains and one kind of fun villain. Avatar, boiled down to its formula, is about a group of friends going on an adventure, bonding over it, and growing as people. The adventure serves as the means in which they grow as people. And this is why comparisons are often so flaky, because any comparison to Avatar is also a comparison to Digimon because they are fundamentally the same. Now there's a fucking hot take for you. Avatar isn't some special genre that popped up and saved animation. The genre already existed. It's a shonen anime made by Americans and having a budget higher than $3 in the price of a pig. Pokemon has more similarities to Avatar than, I don't know, Thundercats 2011, The Dragon Prince. People will try and replicate Avatar by replicating Fire Lord Ozai or the world building, but the part that makes Avatar work is the gang growing and maturing on their adventure. And no, maturing does not mean becoming serious and edgy. Please sit down, 14-year-olds. Avatar is fundamentally about the same thing every good story is about, the nuanced frictions between people and the joys of friendship and diversity. Fundamentally, it's about how diversity is good. There's a whole scene that hammers this point in harder than anything else could ever hope to, and that's a theme that's as old as The Lord of the Rings. Yes, the epic adult fantasy book Tolkien really wanted to use to push fantasy into more mature audiences is about the power of friendship and diversity.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
I could do that.
Dark Souls is about the power of friendship. Dark Souls' spiritual predecessor is about the power of friendship. Monolithic dominance versus diversity and cooperation is the single unifying story thread, more so than the hero's journey at any rate. I once compared Mists of Pandaria, the 4th expansion for World of Warcraft, to Avatar, and the reason I did that was because out of every expansion, it was the most character-focused. Entire storylines would be dedicated to the frictions between the Alliance and the Horde, and you spend more time with the other characters sorting out their various issues than you do stopping the big bad. The Thunder King himself is just an excuse to get Lorthamar and Jaina together to confront Jaina's massacre of elven civilians in Dalaran. There's one quest where you help an old man up the mountain, and he remarks on the fact that the champion is extremely humble despite her Herculean feats and fame. She's slaying the Lich King and Deathwing, but helping someone just take a walk up a hill isn't something she even thinks twice about. And it's that quality that means she is the one who can defeat the one Shah that Emperor Xiaohao couldn't defeat. Pride. That's Avatar. You want to make Avatar happen twice? You have to do that. Compare this to Battle for Azeroth, which recycled almost every plot from Mists of Pandaria. Your ability to speak to other characters and just get their feelings on everything is vastly culled. You don't interact with the main antagonists of the expansion at all, and your faction leaders, previously having entire quest lines devoted to them and what makes them tick, are rarely seen. About the closest thing you can do as a character interaction is decide if you want to betray the Horde and defect to the Alliance or not. And if you do decide to defect, then Sylvanas knows what you've done and actually sounds hurt by it. That's it. And Mists of Pandaria was full of moments like that. Not with Sylvanas, but with Garrosh, Vol'jin, Thrall, Varian, Jaina, Tyrande, and the Rat King. You get all of these moments of raw, visceral emotion, and in BFA, you get one if you play one faction and make a very specific choice that at this point in the story you have absolutely no reason to make. Gotta keep those secrets for the next expansion reveal where we finally learn that something bigger is coming. Why'd I tangent this much? Mists of Pandaria is what Avatar is, and BFA is what many people think of when they say they want another show to do what Avatar did. The point I'm trying laboriously to get to is that Avatar's quality comes from the emotional weight for the main characters, even though the story they're in is actually pretty stupid at times. It's not this great work of art from start to finish. It can be really dumb and contrived, but it works because the characters have a lot of heart and soul put into them. Actually, fuck, hang on. You know how in Kingdom Hearts 2, Goofy gets bonked on the head and you know he isn't dead, but the other characters absolutely do think he's dead? That scene is really stupid, but it works because everyone's putting their whole soul into it. Watching Mickey Mouse go, "They'll pay for this," throw his cloak off and rush into the fray while Vim and Vigor starts playing gets me pumped every single time. Even though I know every time I play this that Goofy isn't dead and that it's fucking Goofy. We're going on a quest for vengeance over fucking Goofy, and I am so into it. That's it. That's Avatar. That's what Avatar is for its entire run. And you can say that and watch hardcore fans lose their fucking minds because how dare you compare the greatest cartoon ever made to the Disney Final Fantasy crossover fanfiction. I feel that the search for the next Avatar is less about finding another work to do what Avatar did, because there are plenty of them, but finding the show they want Avatar to be remembered as. Avatar is not a very mature show. Ideologically, it's quite juvenile. The dangers of imperialism and fascist power fantasies are dismantled by children who don't like to kill. The story twists itself in knots to avoid killing the main antagonists, and its treatment of female characters is poor at best and brazenly misogynistic at worst. To call its presentation of Asian culture shallow and poorly understood would be generous at best, and its attitudes about revenge and changing the status quo are weirdly conservative for a story about ending a 100-year war. It's never been the serialized, uber dark, uber serious, uber important show that fans like to imagine it was. It was a children's show. It was for children. It was made to be understood and digested by children, and all of its flaws are wallpapered over by the fact that it puts its entire heart and soul into its story, no matter how flawed it actually is. There's not a shred of irony or self-parody outside of one episode where they roast themselves, and when it falls flat, it doesn't try to pretend that those things were intentional or get too hung up on them. I don't mean to rag on anyone who, when Avatar came out, thought it was the most important moment in animated TV. Demographically speaking, you were 12. And it was a very good show, it's just that it wasn't good for the reasons many people thought it was. Even in its most tense season, a lot of its episodes were very lighthearted. It was comedic at its core, and benefited from the environment that broadcast television was in at the time. Another show like Avatar would be decidedly not trying to be Avatar, a show with a solid cast that all have their own goals and desires, and a writer that cares about them rather than caring about what trope or dynamic they can fit them into. And one thing you'll notice is that this is a very broad concept. Lily, that could be basically any story. Yeah, that's kind of the point, jackass. You're never going to achieve quality simply by having fealty to tropes. When you do that, a lot of bad attitudes start to form. Look, I have my favorite tropes, but if I'm being honest, it's probably not a good thing to even have them in the first place. When you have favorite tropes, you start judging stories on the mere presence of tropes you like, as opposed to tropes you don't like, and I don't treat anything else this way. And though I have my favorite tropes, I'm not really an avid consumer of them. My media diet is small, and I don't feel compelled to watch every show in a genre. Again, a little bit of everything, but not everything of everything. I don't actually think it's a good thing to exclusively consume your favorite trope, and telling me that my favorite tropes are in a show or film is the worst way to suggest it to me, because I just don't care. I find it's probably healthier to approach media that way, lest you become the kind of person who compares literally any fantasy film to Avatar because it and works like it are your only real frame of reference. This isn't even talking about leaving your comfort zone. Going for things outside your comfort zone and liking them will inevitably bring them into your comfort zone. What I'm saying is, widen your comfort zone. Consume less of the same tropes and genres and branch out into consuming more of other tropes and genres. Try a little bit of everything, and maybe then you'll stop lamenting the fact that we'll never make Avatar happen again. We don't need Avatar to happen again. We already had it. And yes, I know, Avatar showed that animation could be mature. Yeah, just like Steven Universe, just like The Owl House, just like Fritz the Cat. There's a new one every few years that proves what everybody except you already fucking knew. In 2022, it's a cold take to say adult animation is normalized. Cartoon Network has an entire division for it called Adult Swim. You showed up for a fight that was already won years ago. The longest running animated series is one made for adults. Where am I going with this? Oh, right. Please shut up. Please shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about how Family Guy or Robot Chicken or Lower Decks doesn't count because you wanted drama, or you wanted something like that anime you didn't watch but were actually told about. Just shut up. Shh. It's quiet time now. Time for sleep. No thoughts. Only sleep.